Most people believe that being poor is caused by low income, but that is not completely true, because there are people who earn a lot of money, yet they are still financially struggling, while others earn less and still manage to grow, stabilize, and build something meaningful over time. So the real issue is not just how much money you make. It is the mistakes you repeat with the money you already have. And today, we are starting from number 10, counting down to number 7, 6, 5, 4 down to 1, the kind of mistakes that quietly keep people stuck for years without them even realizing it. Now, let's begin with number 10, trying to get rich quickly. This is one of the most dangerous financial mindsets anyone can have, because it sounds attractive, it feels exciting, and it promises fast results. But in reality, it is one of the fastest ways to destroy your financial future. Many people today are chasing quick money through gambling, fraud, stealing, shortcuts, and all kinds of negative paths, thinking that once they hit it big, everything will change overnight. But let's slow down and think clearly. Have you ever seen any true billionaire who built lasting wealth through gambling or fraud? The answer is no, because anything that comes fast without structure, discipline, and value will always disappear the same way it came. Wealth is not something you catch. It is something you build step by step, with systems, with patience, and with understanding. The problem with quick money is not just that it is risky. The real problem is that it cannot be sustained, it cannot be transferred, and it cannot be multiplied in a stable way. And that means even if you get it, you will eventually lose it, because you don't have the foundation to keep it. Anything that grows too fast collapses faster. And anything you cannot explain, you cannot control. So when you build your financial life on shortcuts, you are not building wealth, you are building instability. And sooner or later, it will catch up with you. Now, let's move to number 9, giving up too early. This is where many people sabotage their own progress without realizing it. They start something today, maybe a business, maybe a skill, maybe a hustle. And after a short period of time, when they don't see immediate results, they quit and jump to something else, then something else again. Always chasing what is trending. Always moving based on what people are talking about at the moment. But here is the truth most people don't want to hear. Results are always sudden, but the process is always long. What you see as overnight success is usually the result of years of unseen effort, discipline, failure, and learning. But because people only focus on the outcome, they ignore the journey. And because they ignore the journey, they never stay long enough to experience the result. Let's make it very simple. Instant noodles cook fast, but they don't satisfy you for long. Beans take time to cook, but they stay longer in your system and give you real strength. That is exactly how financial success works. Anything that comes too quickly may not last, but anything that takes time to build will sustain you. Jumping from one business to another is not strategy. It is confusion, and confusion delays progress. Because every time you start something new, you are going back to zero, instead of building on what you already started. Consistency is what creates results, not excitement, not trends, not noise. You must learn to stay long enough, to struggle long enough, to fail long enough, until you understand what you are doing. Because success does not reward speed, it rewards persistence. Now let's go to number 8, not saving money. This is a mistake many people try to justify, especially in today's world where money is losing value. People will say, "Why should I save when inflation is eating my money?" And yes, that sounds reasonable, but it is also dangerous if misunderstood. Because saving is not about growing money. Saving is about protecting yourself. The money you save today may be the reason you survive tomorrow. Life is unpredictable. Sickness can come. Emergencies can happen. Opportunities can appear suddenly. And if you don't have something set aside, you will always be forced into bad decisions, pressured decisions, and regretful decisions. Saving is not an investment. It is a shield. It is your financial protection. And every responsible person should have at least 10 to 20% of their income saved, or enough to cover 6 to 8 months of living expenses, so that when life happens, you are not stranded, you are not desperate, and you are not forced to accept anything just to survive. Let's make it very real. If you eat tomorrow's food today, you will be hungry tomorrow. If you wear tomorrow's clothes today, you will be naked tomorrow. And that is exactly what happens when you refuse to save. Every money you earn has 3 responsibilities. 1 part belongs to your past, 1 part belongs to your present, and 1 part belongs to your future. And if you spend everything on today, you are stealing from your future. And that future will eventually come to demand what you refuse to prepare. Many people today are in financial captivity, not because they never earned money, but because they didn't save when they should have, and when the difficult times came, they had nothing to fall back on. Now let's move to number 7, poor money management. This is where everything starts to fall apart. Because it is not enough to make money. You must know how to handle it. Many people today spend more than they earn, not because they have too many responsibilities, but because they have no control, no structure, and no understanding of how money should be managed. They receive income today, and before the next income comes, everything is gone, spent on consumption, spent on unnecessary things, spent on lifestyle. And they keep telling themselves, next month will be better, but next month comes, and the same cycle repeats again. This is how people remain stuck, not because money is not entering their hands, but because it is not staying there. And if money cannot stay, it cannot grow. Poor money management is not about how much you earn. It is about how you think, how you plan, and how you behave with money. If your spending is controlled by emotions, by pressure, by comparison, or by impulse, then no amount of income will ever be enough. Money requires discipline, it requires planning, and it requires awareness. You must know where your money is going, why it is going there, and whether it is helping your future or destroying it. Because at the end of the day, money is not the problem, management is the problem. And until you fix how you manage money, increasing your income will only increase your problems. Now think about it carefully. How many of these mistakes are already happening in your life? Because awareness is the first step, and correction is what creates change. And as we continue, the next set of mistakes becomes even deeper and even more powerful. Now let's continue, because what we are about to talk about next goes even deeper. These are not just surface mistakes anymore. These are structural financial mistakes. The kind of mistakes that silently control your entire life, your income, your stability, and your ability to ever break free from financial pressure. And if these ones are not corrected, you may keep working hard for years, yet still remain in the same position. Let's begin with number 6, depending on only one income source. This is one of the most common, yet most dangerous financial mistakes people make. Because it feels normal, it feels safe, and it feels acceptable, especially if you have a job or a steady source of income. But the truth is, depending on only one income is like standing on one leg for too long. The moment something shakes you, you will fall. When you put your entire life, your survival, your future, and your hopes on just one source of income, you are sitting on what can be called poverty in disguise. Because it may look stable today, but it is actually very fragile. And the moment that income stops, everything around you begins to collapse. Let's slow down and think about it. What happens if that job disappears? What happens if that business slows down? What happens if something unexpected interrupts that one source? Your bills will not stop, your responsibilities will not pause. Life will not wait for you to recover. And that is where many people find themselves trapped, because they built their entire life on a single stream. Another problem with having only one income is that it limits your growth, because you are trading time for money, and time is limited. You can only work so much, you can only earn so much, and that means your financial expansion is restricted. This is why people remain stuck for years, not because they are lazy, but because their structure does not allow them to grow. They must keep working to survive. And if they stop working, money stops coming. And that is a very big risk. You must begin to think beyond one source. Even if you start small, even if it is slow, the goal is to build multiple streams so that your life is not controlled by a single point of failure. Because financial security is not about how much you earn. It is about how many ways you can earn. Now let's move to number 5. Spending more than you earn. This is a silent destroyer because many people are doing it without even realizing how dangerous it is. They are living a life where their expenses are already waiting for their income. Before the money even arrives, it has already been assigned, already consumed, already finished. This is how people enter into a cycle of debt, pressure, and constant struggle. Because every time money comes in, it is swallowed immediately, leaving nothing behind. No growth, no savings, no progress. Living above your means may look good on the outside, but it is dangerous on the inside because you are building a lifestyle that your income cannot sustain. And over time, that gap between what you earn and how you live begins to widen until it becomes a burden. Many people spend based on appearance, based on comparison, based on what others are doing, not based on what they can actually afford. And that is how financial pressure keeps increasing. You must understand this clearly. If your income is chasing your lifestyle, you are already losing because your lifestyle should be controlled by your income, not the other way around. There is power in living below your means, not because you are suffering, but because you are creating space. Space to save, space to invest, space to grow, space to breathe. If every money you earn is already planned for consumption, then you are not progressing. You are just maintaining a cycle, and that cycle will keep you in the same place for years. Discipline is what breaks that cycle, not more income. Because if discipline is not in place, even increase in income will only increase your expenses. Now let's go to number 4, ignoring investments. This is where fear begins to cost people their future, because many people avoid investing, not because they don't want to grow, but because they are afraid of losing money, afraid of scams, afraid of making mistakes. And yes, those fears are real, because there are fake opportunities, there are fraudsters, there are bad investments. But that does not mean you should avoid investing completely. Because the truth is investment is one of the main ways wealth is created. And without it, growth becomes very slow, almost impossible in the long term. Let's make it simple. If all you do is earn and spend, earn and save, earn and survive, you may remain stable, but you may never become wealthy. Because wealth requires multiplication, and multiplication requires investment. Now understand this clearly. Investment is not about gambling. It is not about blindly putting your money anywhere. It is about calculated risk, informed decisions, and long-term thinking. Yes, there is risk, and yes, sometimes you may lose. But avoiding all risk is also a risk on its own. Because while you are playing safe, time is moving, opportunities are passing, and others who are taking calculated steps are moving ahead. To become a millionaire, you must be willing to handle money at a higher level, and that includes understanding risk, managing risk, and taking action despite uncertainty. Many people have remained in the same financial position for years, not because they lack opportunities, but because they lack courage, and because they allow fear to keep them in a place of safety that produces no growth, no investment, no expansion, no multiplication. And remember, staying in one place for too long is also a risk. Now pause for a moment and think deeply, because these are not just ideas. These are realities that shape people's lives every single day. And as we move into the final part, we are about to enter the most powerful, the most important, and the most life-changing mistakes of all. Now, we are entering the final part, And this is where everything becomes deeper, more powerful, and more revealing. Because what you are about to hear now are not just mistakes. These are the root causes, the foundation level problems, the kind of things that determine whether a person remains stuck for years or finally breaks into a new financial reality. And if you truly understand this part, and more importantly, if you apply it, your financial life can begin to change in ways you may not have imagined before. Let's begin with number 3, not having a financial plan. This is where many people lose direction without even knowing it, because they wake up every day. They work, they hustle, they earn money, but there is no clear plan guiding where that money should go, what it should do, or how it should grow. Everything is happening, but nothing is being directed. And when there is no direction, there can be no destination. Many people live their financial lives on autopilot, reacting to situations, responding to needs, solving problems as they come, but never actually sitting down to design how their money should behave. And that is why years can pass and nothing really changes. If you fail to plan, you have already planned to fail. Not because failure is your intention, but because lack of planning creates confusion, and confusion leads to poor decisions. A financial plan is not something complicated. It is simply clarity, knowing how much you earn, how much you spend, what you save, what you invest, and what your goals are. It is deciding in advance what your money should do, instead of leaving it to chance. Because if money has no assignment, it will disappear. You must begin to give your money instructions. Where it should go, how it should grow, and what it should achieve over time. Because money that is not directed will always be misused. Without a plan, you may work hard, but you will move in circles. Without a plan, you may earn money, but you will not build wealth. Without a plan, you may stay busy but remain stuck. Now let's move to number 2, fear of taking calculated risks. This is where many people lock themselves in one position. Not because they cannot move, but because they are afraid to move, afraid of failure, afraid of losing money, afraid of what people will say, afraid of making the wrong decision. And slowly, that fear becomes a prison. Now understand this clearly. There are risks that are dangerous, reckless, and unnecessary. But there are also risks that are necessary, calculated, and powerful. And the difference between those two is knowledge, preparation, and understanding. The truth is, it is more risky not to take a risk. Because when you avoid all risks, you also avoid all opportunities. And when you avoid opportunities, you remain in the same place. Many people are waiting for certainty before they act. But certainty does not exist in the real world. There will always be unknowns. There will always be doubts. There will always be a chance of failure. But that is exactly where growth is found. Risk takers are money makers, not because they are careless, but because they are willing to move, willing to try, willing to learn, and willing to adjust. Fear will always ask you questions like, what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What will people say? And if you keep answering those questions with an action, you will remain exactly where you are. You don't need to remove fear completely. You just need to stop allowing it to control your decisions. Because growth requires movement, and movement requires courage. Now we arrive at number 1, the greatest of all, not being financially educated. This is the root of everything. Because every other mistake we have talked about connects back to this one. Lack of financial education is the reason people chase quick money, the reason they give up too early, the reason they don't save, the reason they mismanage money, the reason they depend on one income, the reason they overspend, the reason they avoid investments, the reason they have no plan, and the reason they fear taking risks. Because they simply do not understand how money works. Financial education is not about going to school and learning theories. It is about understanding the real behavior of money, where money hides, how money is created, how money is multiplied, how money is protected, and how money flows through systems. Money is not just paper. It is a system. And if you don't understand the system, you cannot win within it. You need to understand the rules that govern money, the principles that guide wealth, and the strategies that allow money to grow over time. Because without that knowledge, you will keep working for money instead of making money work for you. And here is something very important. Knowledge alone is not power. Applied knowledge is power. Because you can listen to everything in this video, understand everything clearly, and still remain in the same position. If you do not take action, knowledge becomes powerful only when it is used, when it is applied, when it is turned into decisions, habits, and actions. The moment you begin to understand money and apply that understanding, you gain control. And when you gain control, you create change. Now pause for a moment and reflect, because everything we have discussed, from number 10 down to number 1, is not just information. It is a mirror showing you the patterns, the habits, and the decisions that may be shaping your financial life right now. And the truth is simple: awareness without action changes nothing. But awareness combined with action can change everything. So the question is not just, what did you learn? The real question is, what will you do differently after this? Because your financial future is not decided by luck. It is decided by what you understand and what you do with what you understand. Now, if this opened your eyes, if this made you think differently, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to see this. Someone who is working hard but not seeing results. Someone who is trying but still stuck. Subscribe to this channel, because this is where you will continue to learn how money works, how to grow, and how to build a life of financial strength and stability. Drop a comment below. Which of these mistakes affected you the most? And which one you are ready to change starting from today? Because change does not start tomorrow. It starts the moment you decide. This is Healthy Billionaire Academy, where thinking differently creates wealth, discipline builds power, and your future is designed, not left to chance. Because here, we don't just chase success. We build the mindset that attracts it.